Hello and welcome to the Wolf Den podcast. I'm your host Nako, joined by my co-host Sanitsu. And this week we'll be discussing the end of BT8 and as it leads into the beginning of EX2 in the following weeks.
Well, it's not 100% the end, but it's pretty much the end. I think looking at the events, we literally have one more in-person event for BT8, but as far as like the big online events, all of them are done. We had Origins, that was another convention in-person event that was done. They had two regionals. Um, but yeah, for the most part, BT not BT9, EX2 is literally just around the corner. I think its release date is like the 24th of June.
I believe,
So,
yeah, the 24th.
yeah. So it's literally just around the corner. At least for US, I heard Oceania actually got it delayed. So their format for BT it's going to be a little bit longer, but it looks like the rest of us didn't get hit by the delay. So
Yet,
we're
as of yet at
trucking
least, as of the recording of this podcast. Um,
right.
so, I think the major point to branch out from is just what does EX2 really change?
Um It changes some things. It's not like it's irrelevant, but I think its impact is definitely not as much as a full set. I think the big deck to be aware of in terms of meta competitively viability stuff is going to be D Reapers. That deck is going to be absolutely dirt cheap to make. Everything is rare and below. The pull rates are already going to be very generous on EX2 if they're anything like Classic Collection. So you're just going to like 1 to 2 boxes, you'll already have a full playset of all of the rares and below. And then you'll probably have at least two playsets of the card that you need like 16 of at least. So you just buy a couple more of those cards and then you're good to go with a basic D Reaper deck. And then the Tamers and other stuff that they use also is pretty low rarity. So it's just going to be a very accessible deck. And as we've seen with Imperial, accessibility generally translates to a lot of players are going to play it, especially since it's going to be like the new strong hotness.
So, I kind of want to start from the bottom here, only because D Reaper is its own animal as well as the own. It is the only completely new deck outside of maybe some like archetype definitions for other decks. So I think we should start with something that is just more deck adaptation. Um, and starting from the bottom of the top, I guess, would be um the easy blanket statement: yellow hybrid gets nothing. Yellow hybrid stays exactly the same, and you just don't need to purchase this if you're exclusively playing yellow hybrid.
I mean, like you could try playing Yellow Hybrid Sakuyamon, but like I don't see a reason to. Like what Yellow Hybrids is doing right now is just good. Like it's just a good deck, which is why it's been winning lots of events. Is like it's easily one of the best deck, and it's still going to be one of the best decks.
So yeah, yellow hybrid's not going anywhere. Um, blue hybrid picks up a cute little package in the form of the Champion Rush level 4 matters package.
Yeah, the it's mostly just the Leomon stuff, just because Leomon will have blocker, so there's actually some alternative form of defense. Both of the good Leomons have on delete effects to be really annoying, either offensively or defensively, because if you delete it, they essentially tax you.
Hmm.
And if they delete during your turn, then it just boosts them. So it's like, God, what do you do? But yeah, they also get the new tamer to play the Leomons, and that's kind of like the big draw for yellow hybrid or not yellow hybrids, blue hybrids to use them is because it's just another tamer that you just throw it down, plays the level 4. Oh, hey, there's a tamer now. And it's passively doing stuff until you digivolve it. So it's just waiting for that moment.
Um, yeah, it seems as though the level 4 matters stuff, um, I guess mostly just in the form of Leomon and Searsdramon or Caesarmon. It's spelled very weird.
It's Ciceramon.
Yeah. Um.
But they don't really use Ciceramon a whole lot. It's more Leomon focused, but like
mm,
Ciceramon's not an irrelevant card. Just because he's just a blanket level 4 with jamming. We already have one of those, but this has 6k DP
yeah.
versus
The
like the other
four.
one that has 4.
Yeah. Just better Frigimon. But I guess we'll touch on it because it's another major package of the um. I don't believe the plug-in deck makes any significant like it's not necessarily not worth talking about, but it doesn't really have a full package with just EX2.
It's like almost there. I've seen people play it with like Lord Nightmon. You could try playing more hardcore Renamon tribal. I think that's actually a mistake. I think the old Renamon stuff from BT5 is like mostly really bad outside of the Sakuyamon, which could actually be relevant. Could is the big keyword. And then the Renamon from that, if you're playing it with like Lord Nightmon, you could just have Lord Nightmon swing, play the Renamon, and then give security tech minus with its on playability. So like it has stuff that it could be played with, but yeah, it's not 100% complete. I was almost thinking on playing it with the Susie package that's also an EX2 because they're missing a mega. But like the Susie package is also playing with Tamers, it's playing with Lotmon, which we have some good Lotmons. So I don't know. There's some exploration there, but yeah, it's just not better than yellow hybrids is the problem.
Yeah, which tends to be the problem for any deck that has a competitive variant, or I guess any color. You know, no one's going to be playing other variants of blue or black or yellow when you could just play the best version of that color, because usually people tend to stick within one or two colors, not necessarily completely jumping party lines, so to speak, to just play whatever they think is the new best deck.
I definitely would agree. I'm 100% a victim of that. I am probably considered a blue main. And then outside of my blue maininess, I probably am sub red or sub black.
Hmm. Um, so just going from top to bottom here, I guess at this point, just again starting from the bottom in the form of mentioning what's here while saying it doesn't really matter. Sorry out there, anyone that still plays green. There are support groups available. But green continues to chew the fat end of the stick.
Yeah, the Terriermon stuff, while it's good, it's too dependent on the opponent having a board, and most of the time, you don't want to give your opponent a board to do stuff with. Like, it happens generally on accident sometimes in the early stages of the game when you're trying to, like, gather your resources, build up your tempo, hide a Digimon in raising that's really, really good. But, like, generally towards the mid to late stages of the game when you're actually going into your level sixes and trying to actually aggress, there's not really going to be a board for green to interact with, which is why Shivamon and green hybrids is still probably the best way to play green. And even then, they haven't really put up that great of results. Like the best green card in EX2 is Parasimon, and even then, it's still not amazing.
Mm,
It's good, just not amazing.
yeah, I mean, I brought up the example in the pre-show discussion, but all of the new Terriermon line, even ending with the new Mega Gargamon, all just state when an opponent's Digimon is suspended. And if they don't have a Digimon, then none of your effects work, none of your stuff procs, and you're just running a bunch of worse vanillas.
Well, I mean, they're not necessarily worse vanillas. The theme is Terriermon, so you're trying to gain value off of Henry and Willis as like your tamer combination. But like even then, like if you're already just playing tamers, waiting for your opponent to do something, hello yellow or hello green hybrids, right around the corner.
Hmm. Yeah, there is a nice like green tamer package built into the lower end. Kind of caring, but I mean, correct me if this is an unfair comparison, but Mega Gargamon just seems like a worse green Shine Greymon.
No, I think you're not necessarily 100% wrong on that. Um, he is very Shine Greymon-y, for green, yes. Um, but it's just what field of Digimon are the opponents gonna have to make him actually good,
Hmm.
is the question.
So, because depending on exactly the inheritables, Mega Gargamon, hopefully you'd probably go with a DP boosting rookie. I don't necessarily know if you want Gummymon. Maybe you want Gummymon. I don't know how well. Green does have the problems with draw, so if you're assuming Mega Gargamon just has its line underneath it, then it's 15k, and you're tucking one 15k per turn, which I think is just worse Shine Greymon, especially when it costs 5 to Digivolve.
Like, the idea is them just gonna have a whole bunch of Digimon, you stun their Digimon, and then you literally keep them stunned and whittle away at them while trying to use them for being suspended to gain extra benefits like Security Attack Plus and various other effects. But, like, again, it's just too dependent on the opponent having stuff, and most of the time, unless you're already hardcore losing or you're able to just pull something out of your butt, it's just not gonna happen. Like, if you're facing off against, let's just say, an Imperial player, and they're done with their big Imperial turn and they end on Imperial to split the sources, yeah, okay, they have 3 Digimon, but the consequence of that is they've probably already attacked you 2 to 3 to 4 times in that single turn, and you're very low on security, and you're what, gonna take care of one of their 3 Digimon per turn? It's still not good enough. Plus,
Yeah,
they could just DNA and ignore the fact that they were even suspended if you
yeah.
didn't kill the level fours.
Yeah,
So,
that's usually where I go when I try and like explain, because while it's easy to explain why something could be good in a vacuum, it's also, I feel, very realistic to just compare it to real world situations it will face against common meta decks. And you just kind of covered Imperial, because yes, if you leave their level fours just out and suspended because you're ending your turn by digivolving because it costs 5, then
well,
you're
it's not actually costing 5. You have Henry to reduce it, or no, Henry is your memory tamer, and then you have Willis will reduce it.
Willis is where? I don't see
Willis
Willis.
is BT8.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah, so like Willis and his Terriermon just make the Henry and more Terriermon stuff better, but it's still not good enough.
Yeah, when a Digimon with Gargomon or Rapidmon, so it'll cost 4, ending your turn. um,
Well, also you'll like for the act of suspending, you should be gaining a memory
or
on some card.
none of them I'm
Uh
reading. Still
I
not seeing it.
it, you might be playing, it might be on Izzy, the starter deck Izzy. So like there is ways to make it reduce, but it's just
Yeah.
a lot of effort for
So,
not as much,
so
not
most
as high as
often
an
you're
output.
ending your turn, and then you're you're basically asking your opponent to respond to that, and they usually can, honestly. The better decks can, I guess, is the answer, because blue or Imperial Jogress is just going to take whatever sources that are tapped and remaining and Jogress and ignore your stun and or tapping anyway. Um, and Yellow Hybrid will have
Just won't have
very
a field anyway.
very few, if any, Digimon, and then we'll just create them from thin air, ignoring your suspension from the previous turn. So, um,
Black will just hide their big stack in raising, and even then, they'll probably just have more DP
yeah,
and reboot. Actually, reboot will just screw
yep,
green over.
yeah,
Red, I think the best red deck is still going to be yellow or red hybrids.
yeah.
Um,
I
like
think
the
the
damage
Red
output
Gallant
of
is
red
cute.
hybrids.
I I saw some lists that the Red Gallant doing things. I guess I would put that above, because I was just gonna mention, I guess, the last little spatterings of, because the black, not black hybrid, but black Tamer's Matter deck in the form of
Black
Justimon,
Justimon. Yeah.
um, waiting for more support. It's just the waiting for more support half deck waiting room that a couple decks have. Um,
Like I've seen Justimon be paired up with Commandramon. I've seen Justimon be paired up with Ragnar Lordmon. So like you do have stuff to play him with. It's just he is trying to be Shine and he can be pretty decent. It's just again, the half deck kind of ruins it for itself cuz it's like it's almost there, just not quite.
Honestly, I think since we're just talking about like offshoot side decks while we work our way towards the decks that'll take up the bulk of the time, I think if anything, the best use of the black support of this set is Cyber German for Machine German decks.
Yeah. I think Machine Dramon, like people joke that Machine Dramon is kind of a meme just because it's like, oh, it loses to blue hybrids, but it's just like, yeah, but it doesn't lose to certain other decks. And if blue hybrids is seeing less play because there's DNA mixed in, then that just allows Machine Dramon to still be a very under the radar sleeper deck. And we do continuously get more support for it. So it's like almost reaching where it should be. And Cyber Dramon is just the next piece in that puzzle.
Machine German's a great deck if you like something that you can continuously upgrade set to set to set because its support is so generic in some ways. Um, and then also if you don't mind playing a tier 2 and or tier 3 deck consistently.
Well, I mean, like, I think I would need to probably test this. I think it actually has a really good yellow hybrids matchup because it can't deep like they would have to be playing splash purple, run
Mhm.
chaos degradation. Otherwise, that Mashidramon is going to sit there and just wreak havoc on the opponent because they can't DP reduce it.
Mm.
Deleting it is probably out of the question too, given certain inheritables. So like it
Yeah.
just sits there and wins the game.
I think I think the risk would be or the would like the difficulty in that matchup in that instance wouldn't necessarily be you have a Machine German with blocker and reboot. It would mostly be like getting there. Getting to the first Machine German of value, a Machine German where you have I guess preferably blocker and reboot, um, and then doing something with it because then you're chipping one per turn, your opponent
No,
like
you
maybe
could give it
two.
security tech plus.
I know, but I'm just saying like how many level fives are you gonna see? What level fives are there? Obviously there's high rolls, but I think there are enough low rolls to make it so that yellow hybrid can just kind of push over the edge because you're not you can only block once, so if it really means I have to just sacrifice an attack per turn to chip away, then your security is finite compared to say, like something like yellow hybrid.
I mean, I'm just saying we would need more testing and more data because nobody's playing it, which is part of the problem. But I don't think it's that bad of a deck.
No. Um, so, and the last, but definitely not least, because I would put this in like almost the next tier of interesting, is I guess I would put Red Gallant in interesting tier. We haven't really talked about it much yet, but so we've like this is basically we've all discussed the chaff decks so far. These are the decks that there is support included. That's cool. They're bad. Nobody cares. And um, but the
Well,
Impmon
nobody cares right
Beelzemon,
now because
yes,
they're
yeah,
not
that's
done.
the waiting for more support waiting room. It's Jessmon, Gallantmon, um, Justimon, Sakuyamon, green, the whole color. Like, but um, Impmon, Beelzemon, um, Blast Mode deck, very real. Not necessarily tier one, but definitely contender for decks to consider and to expect potentially. in EX2.
Yeah, I think Beelzemon definitely has a lot of hype going into him. We've seen already the BT2 secret rare spike twice. Um so he definitely has the interest. We finally get another generic tamer, memory fixing tamer, so you don't need the mats in the form of Ai and Mako.
Mm-hmm.
Um which is nice. You have the Doberman engine also that you could include into it, because Doberman and Alice are like really dumb strong cards. So like there is something there. It's just purple is a very complicated color, and it takes the right person to put it all together and do well with it.
Yeah, it's just kind of got constant purple um things where I can see a lot of choices being made in this deck. Um, it's obviously a deck that cares about trashing and a deck that cares specifically from deck. Um,
Yeah, which we saw a little bit of support for it
mhm,
in BT8. So like Skull Satamon, that's a pretty good card to go into it. I've seen some people try pairing up Malomyotismon in Japanese lists. I don't
Creepy
think that's
Mon.
correct. You could play Creepymon, you could play Lucimon. So
I
like
think
it does have a lot of different things that you can play with it, but like I said, it's purple. There's just already a lot of different synergies, and it's just the right combination to really make the deck excel is the key.
I'm not 100% sure where it falls or where, because it seems as though Mastamon is like the quote unquote purple deck of the format. It also seems like the Lilith Loop replacement of the format, where the people that are playing it are running very specific lists to themselves, and your success with the deck heavily depends on your understanding of its inner mechanisms, more so than with other decks. Um, so I'd be interesting to see how many people switch off of Masty Jogress so soon and switch into Beazel Self Mill Blast Mode.
Yeah, because like the other purple deck that they were trying to push is like Golfmon hand control, and it's not good enough. It's not. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, it
It's
well,
literally two card package, and it's just very middling.
honestly, I reading Golfmon when it was first announced way back in the day, you could have, twisted my arm and told me that Golfmon was an uncommon and I would have believed you. I had no idea that card was a super. So, um yeah, it looks like one of those like uncommon filler level sixes. Like if anyone's playing Digimon Pauper for some reason. Like honestly, Reapermon. We don't really need to mention Reapermon because it's irrelevant, but Reapermon and Golfmon are very similar to me as far as their quality of effects.
I would say, yeah, that's a pretty accurate assessment. Not all secret or not all super rares are good. But getting back on track, the other like big deck is going a little bit deeper into it is going to be Gallantmon,
Hmm.
because Gallantmon does have more support than just what's in the set. He does his even though you're probably almost never going to use any of the BT2 cards except for the BT2 Gallantmon sometimes. Like you're just mostly going to be playing
Starter
red
deck
good
stuff.
stuff. Yeah, it's going to be either from the starter deck or just red good stuff that just uses Gallantmon.
Mm.
Um, the big draw to the deck is Takato giving Gallantmon's Blitz, because a lot of the Gallantmons have really good when attacking abilities, but they have high evolution costs. So Takato literally shores up that weakness. So you could do some like really crazy stuff with it. Like I made a video on it, and one of the things that I did was like, oh, I could utilize Rise Greymon from BT4 to Digiburst, play Takato, Digivolve right away into Gallantmon, the new one, and then gain Blitz and swing 14k, minusing what 10k of stats to the opponent's field. And even at worst, like I'm still just gaining value off of his attack.
Especially,
And he
is that's
and his
the
passive ability is really good.
is that the yellow rise treated as red
Uh
or the other way around?
it's the other way around. Yeah, it's Digiburst play a yellow or red
Yeah.
tamer. So you use that to set up Takato. Um, and then I think like unfortunately the best other mega for Gallantmon is right now Megidramon, just because the sticky body matters. Like
Mm,
keeping bodies and playing your tamers as effectively as you possibly can does matter. So even he's a really good card. You could do some cute things with him, like you could use Yoli with the Rise Greymon also because during your turn he's treated as yellow. So like there's some weird little minute things that you could do to really tech and customize the deck. But it just doesn't feel like it's exactly there yet. Like it doesn't feel premier red.
mm. Especially when you start merging effects. If I gotta find the rise here, but um, if there is, if you do find a way to mix, um, I guess rise is really the only way. Minus DP with deletion effects, then
Yeah.
you can really hit some high ceilings as far as what you're deleting.
And that's kind of why like the only best other supporting level 5 for the deck is going to be the new War Growlmon, just because it helps increase the range. So like if you have a tamer out, then it's going to be increasing it by an extra 1,000. So it's going to be 9k worth of stats, which is not as good as 10, but it's still something.
Yeah.
It makes your options better is what it actually does. Like that's what Gallantmon screams to me. It's just like he makes the DP reduction options way better. It's just like look at Crimson Blaze, 6k. Okay, with Gallantmon, it's bumped up to 8k. Now you're killing level sixes, or now you're killing level fives with that card. Um, you look at something like Red Reamer, that card gets way better. Um, just a lot of these like offshoot, like really weird cards that just seem like they're not really strong enough. The Gallantmon deck, with the increase in range, can really make those cards shine better.
Yeah, I would definitely put Gallantmon, probably. I don't know if I'd put it above, um, Beelzemon. I guess putting them
No, I wouldn't
equivalently.
either. I think Beelzemon is way better than Gallantmon as of right now.
I think they both sit in the category of new packages that can adopt old cards to be successful, while all the other decks previously will adopt old cards and continue to fail. Um,
I don't necessarily think that they'll fail. It's just not as powerful or highly synergistic. It's
eh,
just like you're running Lord Nightmon with Sakuyamon, because there's not really another better level 6 to run. Like that's just the
well,
thing. It's
yeah,
like I don't think it fails at it.
I
I just don't think it's
it
succeeding.
fails by the definition of which we would we recommend someone to be competitive with it. And in that regard of you're running Lord Nightmon because Lord Nightmon's the best option, and that's the problem. Is that you're running Lord Nightmon as the best option. Obviously, the Lord Nightmon package is kind of not a great example because it is such a good package for such a small number of pieces. But in regards to something like the Justimon package, you're just playing a bad black deck. You have a better black deck already there with more support that is just less clunky, more consistent, and you're doing yourself a disservice by switching from X Antibody to Justimon as of EX2. And I think that's
As
the
of
answer for all the prior decks.
Yeah, like I think the best package for Justimon and as of EX2 is probably just playing Commandramon, just because like
Yeah,
that package
that's
is
not a
already pretty
solution.
good.
That's a band-aid.
No, it's not.
That's a band-aid. You can shove Commandramon in anything that sucks and it'll be half decent. You could shove a Commandramon into green and just play Commandramons and happen to also have green tamers that maybe sometimes do something, and you'll still plick wins away because of the consistency of Commandramon.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
You're just playing
Um
like
I think
weird.
people are still going to play it just because
Oh
it's
yeah,
new, it's the new hotness and they're going to try it and then they're going to realize real quickly that like okay, maybe this isn't quite 100% meta competitive yet.
I I almost guarantee you I will play into it when I'm 0-2 at locals. But besides that, I don't expect to ever play against a Justimon deck until it gets more support. Again, waiting for new support waiting room. Um, it's just a sad corner where you have to wait for your turn in line to be somewhat relevant. Um,
Right. And then as far as the big dog
yeah,
of
D
the
Reaper
the
skips
set,
that line. D Reaper walks
yeah,
into the room and then immediately exits the room.
yes, it's just like, "Hey guys, I'm already complete." I'm like it is actually the first built-in pre-canned out of the box or out of the booster
It's a
box deck
starter
that you
deck
can
of
make.
EX2 essentially.
Yeah, so like it's a very very low effort deck, not like low effort in terms of play, but like everything is low rarity. It's going to be very easy to acquire and it's going to be a very competitive deck out of the gates.
And it doesn't. It basically needs nothing or minimal support, and I think that's going to be a big draw, because even looking at lists, the because while Blue Hybrid was an easy to build list in previous sets, or Gabu Bond, sometimes they required portions of things that were expensive, like Davis or TK for yellow, and but D Reaper just doesn't need those.
No, they're perfectly happy with Kari from BT8, another uncommon, or they're perfectly happy with any black
TK and
tamer
Kari.
just because it's black.
Um,
You have TK and Kari for yellow. I think the best packages for D Reaper is black and yellow.
yeah.
Uh
I haven't seen anything other than black and
insert
yellow.
meme there.
Um,
I've seen a little bit of splash of red and a little bit of splash of purple, but nothing like hugely widespread. It's just like they're running the red package for some extra DP because of tie and a delicate plan to make Reaper swings better. That's
mm,
about it. Purple is just literally playing Kari just to act as a de-incentivization tool for the opponent not trying to swing.
yeah. Um, yeah. D Reaper, very. I think I've touched on it before, but to at least make it known for this episode, if someone cares about EX2 and they're interested in D Reaper, I think D Reaper is a very good deck potentially to include for the health of the game, because what it does is it forces a middling of decks that previously we've only seen decks push to the outsides, meaning that you either have decks that are trying to be as fast and aggressive as possible or as slow and controlly as possible, and we have basically zero true combo decks outside of exclusively Lilith Loop and whatever Lilith Loop Frankenstein that existed for that various format. But even then, it was still
I would also
slower.
Yeah, I would say that a faster combo deck is probably Imperial. Like people might not think it's a combo deck, but it still kind of is.
It's an
You're
aggro
lining up
combo deck, though.
Yeah, you're lining up very specific lines of play that are somewhat linear, but like you also have the flexibility to extend those plays in various different ways.
I
Um
I would, I guess, draw the hard line of combo deck of like, if you're playing Imperial and you don't have Dragon mode, are you still swinging? Yes, that you're not a combo deck. You're a deck that uses combos.
yes.
So D Reaper without Reaper does nothing. So that's the combo in the combo deck. You accelerate your game state to a point where you can play your combo more akin to Lilith Loop, because again, Lilith Loop without Lilithmon isn't looping shit. Um,
Well, I mean, you use Creepymon also, but same difference. Yeah, you don't have your level 6, you're not looping.
um, so that's I guess the line that's there, because yes, Imperial has some fantastic combo turns. They are not required by any means. You are not required to, like, okay, I'll hold in raising and I'm only gonna promote when I have a Stingmon and a Pyldramon and a Dragon mode. No, you just go. So, um, D Reaper. It also has, so like, as far as like its addition to the format and what I think it does for the game in general is it has a clearly defined window of aggression and opportunity. So as a result, it punishes decks that are slower than it while still losing to decks that are faster than it.
And I think like with the way yellow hybrids is and how slow just yellow control based decks can make the game, I do kind of think that D Reapers is like, I don't want to say it's a necessary evil. I think it does have the proper, it is filling a proper space that really wasn't there before, because it's just like if you're a fast deck, you go too fast, you're outsteamed by yellow's recovery. Um and then if you just go too slow, then they're just going to chip at you, whittle you down, and then you just magically lose the game out of nowhere. Like their D Reaper does fill up that mid zone where it's just like, yeah, if you're slower than it, you're probably going to lose. If you're faster than it, you still have a decent shot of winning. Now, granted, D Reapers does have some really stupid cards and potential. Like I think Gatekeeper is absolutely insane. That card is bonkers.
Hmm.
Security Digimon to play it for free and then just recover when it's played for free and then shut out the opponent's attack if Mother D Reaper is just big enough in terms of its inheritables. Like that card is so stupid.
Um, yeah, I think while normally we try, like, I guess not, we don't necessarily explain the specific intricacies of decks, usually. Um, Given the time and given that D Reaper is the focus of EX2 competitively, I think we could really delve into what makes D Reaper tick and why it is like the competitive deck to be potentially added to at least tier 1.5, if not tier 1, right out the gate. And um, I guess step one being that it gets 100% of its support at once. So this is, this is your BT9 X antibody. This is your BT9 Black War Greymon. Your uh, other decks that just get support over multiple formats, over multiple sets. It gets everything all at once. All it will almost definitely ever get is here.
Yeah, like they could easily print like new versions of some of these cards, but like there's no real reason for them to actually do that. They're not like that well known, that memorable, and everything here already just feels kind of complete, which is why it's like the first in box deck ever.
Hmm.
Like that's the crazy part.
Yeah. It's the
Because
only deck that because I know it's something that TCG players in general tend to struggle with. Like, I want to build Yellow Hybrid. Which set should I buy? You kind of can't. If you want to play Deep Reaper, you buy EX2. It's the only exception to that rule.
yes. You could make an argument for Eosmon, but like I don't
Nobody
consider
plays
just filling the
Eosmon.
deck with yeah, like I don't consider just filling the deck with chaff copies of Eosmon that being good. But here like usually you'll run like 16 to 18 searchers and then four of literally all of the good D Reapers and then boom, you have a deck with Mother D Reaper as your Tama.
Yep. It comes with its own
And then
eggs.
just
It comes with its own low end, top end, mid end. Um, Actually, so there is no low. They're all the same. That's
yeah, they don't have a level, which also adds to their competitive viability because any effect that's targeting level
ignore
does
them.
not apply to D Reapers.
Yeah.
So this really nerfs purple huge because almost all of purple's removal is
Stating
based on the fact that
delete
they're
X.
level based.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the easiest one being um
Some of blue's bounce effects won't work on them. Not all of them, but some.
uh well, I'm trying to think of because I did see like a deck showcase and it was where I first saw D Reaper and it was versus a purple deck, and it's because um so like I'll just go over like the purple option from this set. When it's trashed from your deck, gain a memory, cool, nice synergy. But its security ability is delete an opponent's level 4 low. Oh, you see, you've already attached a level. It doesn't do anything. You will never delete anything that says level X to a D Reaper. Any one of them, the small one or the big one, they're all level null. They have like a hyphen. Biezomon, when digivolving, trash the top 2 cards of your deck, then delete an opponent's level 3 or lower. For each 10 cards in your trash, add 1 to the maximum level that this can be deleted. Ignores that. Ignores a lot of purple's deletion effects. Um, It doesn't ignore the like the Gallantmon deletion stuff, but as we've already stated, Gallantmon's kind of eh. Um,
Some
so
like I said, the hit not having a level on its cards could matter.
it matters for
Um
quite a few things. Yeah.
Yeah. So that also adds to its competitive viability. Everything in the deck is literally rare and below. You don't need any supers. So it's a very easy, very accessible deck. Especially with the generous pull rates of the EX2. I'm just assuming that they're going to be almost identical to EX1. Just the secret is now two secrets instead of one. But like in terms of like rare pull rates and below, it should all be the same. Um, so you're going to have a very easy time being able to build the deck for literally dirt nothing.
I'm looking and if I'm are there is there only one altart in the set or
No, there's a couple of different alt arts.
they're just not on the
It's
Digimon website?
yeah, they're just they're still going through spoiler season right now for English stuff.
Hmm.
So that's why it's not there. But as far as like what the deck is actually doing, the whole core and concept of the deck is you're using Mother D Reaper, which is a Digitama with 15,000 DP, which means the second you could raise it without actually digivolving because it does have a DP to exist. That's why
Hmm.
all of the other Digitamas you can't raise them because they don't have a DP to
I
exist.
think there's also like a
Um,
generic rule about you can't have level twos, but it's also not a level two, so it doesn't matter.
Right. Whatever Mother D Reaper is doing, she's bypassing the restrictions that a normal Digitama has while still being a Digitama. Now, while it's on the field, it is considered a Digimon, so that is something important to keep in mind. But the whole idea is you're just going to be shoving searchers underneath Mother D Reaper to build up her source to be able to make playing your other D Reapers cheaper so that way you could actually play them more efficiently. So your searchers will literally do just that. You'll just draw a card for playing them, and then they get to go under Mother D Reaper. And then you have cards like Jerry, which will just continuously try to add cards like extra cards underneath by suspending her. And then you have cards like Lady's Hands, which is another really good one, where it's just going to be acting as like the big removal Digimon, so it's just trying to use the fact that your Mother D Reaper is big to delete the opponent's Digimon, which is good.
Yeah.
Um, you do have a built-in blocker in the form of Creepy Hands. They almost never use Horn Striker, but like if you're going for like an extra hyper budget version and you don't really have any outside cards, he's not bad. Just Rush, like an extra attack
Yeah.
that could potentially be free. Um,
So
I already
competitively
mentioned
though,
Gatekeeper. Yeah,
um,
competitively, he's probably the worst of them, and the first one you want to cut for other stuff. Gatekeeper's the better one. So like a lot of the decks will run like 16 to 20 searchers pending deck. They'll run like some awkward ratios, usually 2 to 4 of everything but Horn Striker, and possibly Optimizer. Some don't run Optimizer at all. Most
yeah,
of the time, he's like a one of if
I
they
don't
do.
think they do usually. So, um, and I think it really dials down to so anyone doing like analysis as to like why certain things are run and certain things aren't run is you have to understand the purpose of the deck. Is a combo deck, and I think that is also something that alludes to its unique deck construction. Horn Striker and Optimizer aren't necessarily bad cards. The problem is neither of them really advance your specific game state. Technically, Optimizer does, but Optimizer is also on the expensive side. It's a 10 cost on play reduced by Mother, but still, that you're starting from 10 as opposed to the more efficient, um, quote unquote, low end that advance your game state that cost 5, 3, and 3 respectively. So those are your real engines, and the
And
engine.
Pallades Hand costs 6, so
Yes,
it's also a
Pallades Hand
really easy and
6.
cheap card.
So 7 and 10 are the expensive ones. Gatekeeper's 11, but Gatekeeper plays itself from security. And if you could hard play Reaper or Gatekeeper, um, if you meet its alternative requirement that kinda usually means you win the game. Um, when Mother D Reaper has 6 sources or more, which means you win on the following turn. Um, all of your opponent's Digimon get minus security attack. Again, blanket statement, um, like Ice Wall, like Holy Flame. So doesn't matter if it's Yogresses, doesn't matter. It's security attack -1. Um, and when it plays itself from security, you recover one. So
Even just hard playing it, you're still gonna recover one,
yeah,
which is still the insane part because like if it does
reducing
have
its
the six
cost by
sources,
4 or 5.
yeah, yeah, most of the time by the time you're playing it, you're reducing its cost by 4 or 5, so it's at least more palatable or comparable to other cards that we were playing like it. And then, like you said before, the whole point is to go into Reaper, with a big fat stack underneath Mother, and you're just basically going to swing repeatedly with Reaper. Like that is the whole
Yeah,
combo. It's you build up Mother to then play Reaper to then swing with Reaper multiple times per game.
yeah. So specifically, how it works is Mother having 7 sources, um, even being added the turn that you could play Reaper. So you add your 7 source, trash 7 sources from a Mother to play Reaper for a play cost of 0. It gains Rush, so it doesn't matter. And then when attacking, you can take 2 Searchers from your trash to unsuspend. So bypassing anything, you just put 7 in your trash. So Reaper itself is swinging once, +2, +4, +6. So Reaper itself is swinging 4 times. Just with the.
Not to mention, yeah,
Yeah.
not to mention any chip you could have done or any other
So
searchers that could be in the trash.
the only limfac for Reaper winning you the game on that turn would be that your opponent isn't at 5 or higher security, but that's also assuming Reaper's the only other thing on your board, which it usually isn't.
And the
So,
crazy part is we didn't even mention that Mother D Reaper is not affected by card effects.
yes.
So they can't just like Wyvern's breath it
Yep.
away. That just
Mother D
does not
Reaper
happen.
cannot attack, but also cannot be can and the specific word is cannot be affected by your opponent's card effects. It cannot be tucked, it cannot be DP reduced, it cannot be. The only thing that you can legally do to a Mother Deer Reaper is
It's
if it
beat over
chooses
it.
to suspend, you can attack it. That's not a card effect. But
Well, Red has cards to attack an unsuspended Digimon. But yeah, like if you are able to beat over a D Reaper, that is the way to beat Mother D Reaper.
I don't think we mentioned it either. A strength of D Reaper's chip damage is that each source underneath the mother gives all D Reapers 1,000 DP um on your turn. So Bubbles 3k if you no longer need, or actually Bubbles is just an on-play ability. So after you play your Bubbles,
Yeah,
every
Bubbles
following
is
turn
just
Bubbles is chipping.
yeah. So and the chip just makes it so when you go into Reaper that much more
Or
easier.
Pendulum
And
Feet.
yeah, because Searcher's inheritable under Mother is what's making all of them subsequently stronger.
Yeah, so Bubbles and Pendulum Feet are normally only 3k, but at that 5 sources, those are 8k swinging. That's fairly safe, honestly. Even if they could get beaten over on the following turn, but um, it's it's a weird place to be in because you really have to analyze the strengths and values of your deck because if you're wasting swings killing a Bubbles who has already done its job essentially, which is like again advance the state. So you care about sources under Mother, and there's only well your easy way is you can tuck a searcher once per turn. So that's your that's your clock. That's your doomsday clock, so to speak. Every turn you play and tuck a searcher because searcher reduce its own cost when it's there aren't other searchers on the field. So your first turn you play a searcher, it will cost 3. Every other turn, it will cost 1. Um, that's not true. The first turn, it'll still cost 1. So that it also has very good efficiency in going first. You just play it for 1. You pass 1 to your opponent's turn and draw a card. Um, Searcher cannot attack, but you don't want Searcher to attack because you're tucking Searchers underneath Mother anyway. Um, Pendulum Feet and Bubbles both advance that Doomsday Clock. Pendulum Feet specifically adding um,
More
searchers to
searchers.
your hand, allowing you to constantly just never miss a turn playing your searchers, and bubble. No, so actually no. So they both just search. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they
Jerry's the
both
one that
do
advances
search.
the clock. Jerry tucks a searcher.
Yeah, so you play Pendulum Lafitte and you play Bubbles to get more searchers. You to be able to have them under Mother D Reaper. Jerry's going to help shove them underneath as well, so that way it accelerates your Doomsday Clock.
Yeah,
Then you play
Jerry's the one
cards
that
like
moves the game. Yeah.
yeah. Then you play cards like Creepy Hand and or Pallades Head and Creepy Hands to try to control the opponent's field, slowing them down to build up into a Gatekeeper to basically put them on full halt, while you then proceed into a Reaper turn.
Mm. Yeah, Gatekeeper.
Meanwhile, if the yeah, meanwhile you're going to be chipping with Pallades Feet and Bubbles.
Hmm. Um, Pilates head is
I
Pilates
call it Pallades.
Pilates head. Um, being your pseudo removal in the deck, outside of option cards that you choose to run, depending on which color you choose to splash in. Um, because you may suspend Pallades to delete an opponent's Digimon with DP less than or equal to this Digimon's DP again on your turn plus 1,000 per source. We're talking on average um,
I
the
would
7 to
say
10k
7 to
range.
8. Yeah, which means it's going to hit anything that's level 5 or below.
You're killing a 5 or lower by tapping it on every turn. Um, Again, on your opponent's turn, it's only 3k, but you're wasting, like, you have this finite clock. You D Reaper or Reaper will come down and Reaper will end the game if you let Mother get to 7 and Mother gets one every turn. So, at least one every turn, unless Jerry's there. So, um, so we mentioned all the searchers. You run a lot of searchers. The benefit being that because the package is so tight and so well maintained, you are then given the option to adopt like a color with which to have some tamers and option cards to support a strategy
Yeah, the two more common ones is going to be black for control and yellow
for
for
control.
control. Yellow, you're playing it mostly because of the like recovery aspect of it.
Reinforced memory
Plays
boost is
really,
still just
yeah,
I know we mentioned it before, but to double down on it, D Reaper's the reason reinforced memory boost was limited because
yeah, because they would rig a
Gatekeeper,
gatekeeper, and then once gatekeeper comes in, the opponent just full heart can't do anything
yeah,
most of the time.
Gatekeeper also being a 10k body baseline before the boost that replaced itself in security. So if you could add a card to hand, put a Gatekeeper in security, forcing your opponent to flip it, replacing itself, and then dealing with a 10k body just inherently is because Gatekeeper swinging is not dying, basically, and is
Yeah,
also really hard to remove on your opponent's turn.
and then if you're adopting black, the most common thing to do is use Final Zubagon Punch to just literally make Mother D Reaper a 18k blocker, which most decks actually can't get over. There's only a small handful that actually can, which is kind of ironically funny, but most decks only like realistically needed to get over 13, 14, 15 pending meta, so they didn't really need to reach that high before. And now Mother D Reaper is saying, hey, look, I get to buy a turn because you can't really aggress because I'm just going to kill your biggest and most important card if you're trying to chip.
Yeah. Um. Other I gotta find it. Other things that it uses just to adopt the package. Um, doesn't
Izzy and
necessarily,
Joe's for draw and
yeah.
black. You
Izzy and
use
Joe for memory and draw.
yeah, you use Kari BTO8 because again, recovery off of Gatekeeper just means you could gain a memory, which makes Gatekeeper cost less.
Mm. And then Izzy, the just like
You
BT4
just
Izzy
look
memory tamer, just to sort your draws because you only care about getting to your 7 searchers.
right, or like if you need to know that a Reaper's on top and you need to get to that Reaper, it also helps you like get to those types
Yeah,
of cards while acting as the black source. Like you're only playing tamers and options realistically because you just play the tamer to have some synergy and value, and then the options are just there to help try to control the opponent's field. Like I've seen D Reapers adopt cards like Emergency Program Halt, to just stop the opponent from trying to utilize their options to make some of their plays better.
Hmm. Um, so we've talked about what makes D Reaper good. And while it is kind of a flash in the pan deck where this is the strongest it gets and it only gets worse from here on out, um, D Reaper's strength is its biggest weakness as well, in the form of it needs 7 underneath Mother to do anything.
Yeah, it like realistically needs at least three for your Digimon to really start gaining lots of value. Which means that's still a couple of turns before you could really start getting going.
And taking advantage of, because earlier on the DP will be smaller. The DP will be smaller on your turn as the opponent regardless, but the they can't really risk swinging in with stuff like Jerry, or if they do swing with the Pilates, then it's probably just dying for one, like trading back, like you get your draw off of it and then you swing and it dies and then you move on. But um it just really needs to it also needs to see Reaper. It You can only run 4 of them, and if you don't see one, you have no combo potential.
Yeah, so like it's gonna be a really fun and interesting deck. But it's up to the players to decide how well that deck is actually going to do in the long run. Like I even think in BT9 it's still going to be really strong.
Yeah.
It's just heavily reliant on the adoption of tamers and options more than increasing the quality of their Digimon and their combo, which is the big detriment in the long term. Is like if they don't have anything to help accelerate it, its clock is just that finite.
Mm. And while Mother is immune from removal effects, Reaper is not. So if you are playing enough high-ended removal effects, you can defeat it, such as once you've trashed the sources under your Mother, a Wyvern's Breath does just kill Reaper and win you the game because you've already trashed the sources under the Mother. So hitting a Wyvern's Breath security kind of just loses you that game, probably. I guess early on,
Yeah,
if you hit it first, not necessarily. If you hit it third, who cares? Because you've probably can stabilize enough to get that last couple chip in, but um, and then you've lost your gatekeeper effect because you've trashed the sources underneath your Mother. Um, but yeah, that's the package. It's very flexible. I would not be surprised if outside of like even just with red and black or with yellow and black, I think it'll see a decent amount of experimentation in North America. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone tries to go in another direction with it. I could see I could see blue packages, I could see purple packages, I could see red packages, and
I think the
everything
only one
but
it
green.
doesn't care about is green. Yeah.
Everyone but green because green's bad. But um
Green just has nothing to offer for it. It's like there's no real benefit for it trying to suspend the opponent's Digimon. Its bounce is just
mm,
worse than blues. It has almost zero memory efficiency that it actually can utilize.
green
So
does do anything. That kind of summarizes it. Green doesn't do anything. So um
at least not for D Reapers.
especially because uh D Reapers, I feel like mostly will be defined by their differences than their similarities because the deck builds itself primarily, and only your few choices in are you going to add yellow? Are you going to add black? Are you going to try and fit in maybe 2 colors in there if you're getting real crazy? As a
And then just the
BT9,
ratios of certain cards.
that'll be a choice. Maybe you could go red and yellow, or that's about it. Yeah, it's just red and yellow. um, but
I mean, getting a little trying to step back from the whole D Reaper hype because we know it's going to be good and like it's going to be a very easy to build self-contained deck. There's still just a lot of other different possibilities that you could still think about with EX2. It's not like a dead set. It's just certain aspects of it are limited because it's a smaller, more self-contained set. But like you do for Armor Rush, get probably the best egg you could have ever hoped for in the form of Xiaomon. So like it does have some meaningful upgrades to various other decks. Xiaomon just states as an inheritable that while the Digimon is level 4, then it gets plus 1000 DP. Slap that on armors, and it's just significantly harder now to get rid of armors. Their weakness to Rapidmon is now non existent because now they have to try to um, get past Xiaomon, which they generally can't, and they'll only be able to pick off one Digimon versus a whole field of armors, which does matter because you want to keep your Digimon around as much as you possibly can. You get some weird upgrades to like source splitting with Gorillamon, where his on play ability lets you play level 3, so you could go up to a Leopardmon, split Gorillamon, split a level 3, and then we have like Gomamon to help draw some cards, and we could use Chimeramon in that deck or like DNA to really hammer in source splitting being actually good. As far as like some other upgrades, I don't think Marine Angemon is good at all. Um,
Not yet.
Not
There's
yet.
there's another card that
Uh,
cares about Marine Angemon in what, 9?
Grand Marine Angemon, no, nothing cares about Marine. The only thing that cares about Marine Angemon is his Tamer, and his Tamer is not good at all.
I could have sworn there was another card, but yeah.
No, there's nothing. I do think the Suzy, like the Suzy Lotmon package, could be included into um the Sakuya stuff, just as like some extra things that it can do, just because it is in an incomplete thing. Or you could spin Suzy and the Lotmon stuff into yellow Rookie Rush. Like that deck could actually still be viable because we have Ankylamons that are both really good. We have good Lotmons. It's just another easy thing that you could do. I'm not saying these are good decks. I'm just saying these are possibilities. So like, there's still various different things that the set is adding of value. It's just the majority of it isn't going to be hyper meta competitive, which is fine. Not everything has to be. Um,
Yeah. Um, I
But
would
for the most
say,
part, as far as winning decks, you're still going to be seeing Imperial. You're still going to be seeing Yellow Hybrid. You're still going to be seeing the same stuff that you have been seeing since BT8. It's just the big inclusion being D Reaper kind of adds this middleman where it's just like now control is a little bit worse because it has something that it can't really control.
um, I said this at the beginning of BT8, and because EX2 adds comparatively little, it just means that we have an additional time frame to expand upon BT8 lists and work BT8 lists and matchups, and you just add D Reaper to the mix as far as something you need to worry about as and something you need to account for when preparing for an event. But you're still, now you were kind of not caring outside of the top 3 of I guess 4 if we include X antibody, but you were yellow hybrid, blue imperial, masty, and then like small spatterings of like blue hybrid and armor rush and X antibodies, and now you just add D Reaper on top of that into contention for a solid big 4 of yellow hybrid, blue imperial, masty, jogris, and D Reaper. Like those are your 4 that you could focus on. Those are the 4 you're gonna most likely to see. Um, but it's still really just BT8 with the addition of D Reaper.
For the time being, yes. I think, like I stated before, there's a lot of untapped potential. So like Gallantmon and Beelzemon are two very decently power. They could have the potential to be very decently powerful. It's just it
Hmm.
takes the right player to put that combination together and do very well with it. And then usually, uh, unfortunately, a lot of TCGs follow a herd mindset where they see something do well and then they just want to copy that. So
It's
I just think like with all of the success of those decks that we just listed already before, that's kind of the mindset that we're in. And looking at Japanese results, not that like we really should. I use it again as more of a popularity spectrum. D Reapers, the ease of accessibility does help it see lots and lots and lots of play.
and there's
And the more
also
it plays, the more you're going to see it top, just because there's a higher representation of it.
and just like the idea of if you're gonna play D Reaper, I'd play it now because it's only going to get comparatively worse as more cards get printed and more support is added to other decks because D Reaper's not getting anything. So
No, it's just up to the tamers and the options to really hard carry the deck, and generally that's something that doesn't hard carry a lot of decks unless you're a hybrid based deck.
I was just gonna add one um, honorable mention to the competitive scene in the form of something we discussed in an offshoot episode. So if not everyone
Is
might
it
be
Machine
aware.
Dramon?
No, it's not. It's
Oh.
Alice McCoy
No,
because
Alice McCoy is so stupid. That card is so splashable
yeah,
and easily one of the best cards, if not the best card in the entire set.
yeah, we
In
discussed
a vacuum.
its problems before, but it's a 2-cost purple tamer, very cheap, that states when once per turn on your turn, when your level 5 Digimon would Digivolve into a level 6, you may delete one of your other Digimon to reduce that cost by 3. So it's a purple tamer that costs 2 to play, very cheap, that lets any Digimon of any color level Digivolve for cheaper. So if you really are struggling with a deck concept that cares about having expensive Digivolution costs be reduced, Alice counts even if it's not a purple deck.
And we've seen this type of design before with Hero in BT8, where it's just any level 5 Digimon can gain the 2000 DP, making him just one of the better generic tamers for a lot of decks to use. Plus, with Mother D Reaper being a thing and like DPing actually starting to matter a little bit more, maybe that 2000 actually is a good thing. Just like Alice McCoy, maybe reducing your evolution cost is a good thing. I think not all decks could take advantage of it the way they need to, but like certain deck colors definitely can. I think red is a good one.
Blue.
Yellow is obviously a good one.
I don't think
Black
blue.
could be a good one.
I don't think yellow is because you, unless you're playing specifically Lord Nightmon, you don't really have other things to kill. Like yellow hybrids never has two Digimon basically out at a time, and you're definitely not going to
Mm,
kill one
you
to
could
reduce a cost.
I probably would. Like so the scenario that I'm thinking up in my head is I have low security. I raise up a Salamon, swing with
Hmm.
the Salamon, expecting it to die. It doesn't. Now I could easily go up the chain using Alice to recover two um, because going into Ophanimon Fall Down and use that to delete the Salamon to recover a third.
Yeah,
So, and then you could
yeah,
use
that's
it
the
in
best
combination with Armor
example.
Purge.
Hmm.
Yeah, you could use it in combination with Armor Purge to trigger the Armor Purge to then
I
replay a another um
Yeah.
Rapidmon. So like there
It
are
also
some
doesn't
niche
even tap this
uses.
tamer, even though it's only once per turn. The tamer doesn't have to be tapped. I don't know if that ever matters, but
Yeah, like obviously she wants to be played with Doberman because Doberman states that if you have an Alice in play, then his cost to play him is reduced by 2, making him a level 4 that hard plays for 3,
hmm.
which is already very appealing for Chimeramon. Like so there is just a lot of possibility between those two to do some absolutely crazy things.
Mm. So it's just one of those like back of your mind cards that I haven't seen a whole lot of it necessarily, especially since the restrictions that were first put in place in Japan. There are other cards, the cards that are already restricted in North America now, but um, it's something to consider for any archetype that utilizes expensive costs. It isn't green. That so if they can't utilize hidden potential discover, then you could always just splash Alice in to use that cost saving effect.
I wouldn't necessarily 100% rely on it, but like it's definitely a factor that could come up,
Yeah,
which is nice.
it's completely color agnostic, it's archetype agnostic. Normally something that powerful of that nature would require it to be a specific trait or be a specific color or both, and it isn't, which is why we're mentioning it.
Yeah,
So, that seems like it was a pretty good overview of the BT8 med game leading into EX2. Um, there's still more to talk about in upcoming episodes as far as matchups and exact tools and changes that these lists come into once we can officially start calling them EX2 lists. Um, but I don't think EX2 is going to be that long. I don't have a calendar in front of me. Do you know exactly
Uh,
when when's BT9 supposed to come? Because I feel like it's pretty close
uh,
too.
give
End of
me two
July? I think
seconds
it's
and
the end
I'll.
of July. I think we only have a month of EX2.
I'm looking that up right now. Digimon. Thank you, GTS, for supplying this information. That's what I generally go to when I want to look at like distributor stuff to see if something was delayed. So X record, the end of July is when it's coming out.
Yeah.
July 29th is
Yep.
currently its slated position.
So we have,
So
assuming
it's
no
it's a
delays to EX2 and no delays to BT9, we only have like 4 weeks with the format.
which is fine because it's a supplementary set to begin with. It's not meant to like have huge drastic change on the meta. Like it's just going to introduce some new concepts for us to start thinking about playing with, and then when BT9 comes in, then those concepts get further fleshed out, and they still get further fleshed out in BT10 as well.
Or
But
abandoned.
or what's getting abandoned?
From EX2 to BT9,
I
most of it.
mean, like you do get like some stuff, but BT9 is supposed to more directly support BT8.
BT10 helps, what, Shoutmon?
Sakuyamon. Out
Sakuyamon?
of the EX stuff, it helps Sakuyamon. I think Justymon's in BT10 also.
Justimon.
Blitzarm.
So yeah, you're kind of in the BT10 waiting room. More Beelzemon?
Yeah, Beelzemon BT10 also. Like even though it is a Cross Hearts card, like I think that card is actually really good in the Beelzemon deck just because Balmon, but that's getting way too far ahead.
Um, yeah, just, well,
Point being
BT9's just
BT9.
more multicolored option cards, so.
Yeah, BT9 is just a BT8 2.0. It's from what we have heard slash seen, it is definitely going to be more of an OTK format. The format is speeding up just because I think yellow was such a problem. They really like I'm gonna always have a section. I need to just call it the hate on yellow segment where it's just like I hate on yellow.
Mm,
But yellow is kind of just that problem, and I do think BT9 shifted a lot of its design to try to beat out yellow. Like there's zero reason why they needed to accelerate the game to what BT9 introduces other than the fact that yellow recovery is just that good.
so. Yeah, with that, there's definitely more to cover. We'll have some more stuff on
I can't
uh,
hate on blue.
BT8 and EX2 in the following weeks, so definitely keep your eyes out for those. With that,
But I think yeah,
guess
I
we
think
can close
outside
it
of the
out.
fact that yeah, I think outside of the fact that they're just spamming lots of product really quickly, that's like the only big thing. I think like this is going to be a very interesting and fun format.
Okay, so with that, I'll close it out. Goodbye.
Bye.